Welcome back again. Looking at a live shot here of the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. Again, the arena usually associated with both the Capitals and the Wizards play. But tonight it has been the stage where our own Richard St. Paul was there earlier, in fact, for Republicans making a plea to a significant and major influential lobbying group as it relates to Israel and also with Jewish interests. Donald Trump going to speak, and there is already scheduled protests surrounding it. Rabbis claim that they'll walk out due to some of his comments about Israel and also a few other ill-timed remarks, let's just say. For those who forget, Donald Trump made some headlines when he insulted yet another group. I'll let you reach your own conclusion. This is what he had to say a few months ago to a Jewish Republican Association playing on stereotypes. Take a look.
I'm a negotiator like you folks. We're negotiators. You want to renegotiate deals? Some of us renegotiate deals. I would say about 99.9. Is there anybody that doesn't renegotiate deals in this room? This room negotiates. I want to renegotiate this room. Perhaps more than any room I've ever spoken to.
The Donald, of course, on a more serious policy issue, actually got a lot of people upset because he laid out at least his vision at the time as to where America's loyalty should be in our relationship with Israel, and also as it also went to Palestinians and which side America would be on if, in fact, he was President Trump. This again from a few weeks ago.
I don't want to be in a position where I'm saying to you and the other side now say, we don't want Trump involved. We don't want. Let me be sort of a neutral guy. Let's see what. I'm going to give it a shot. It would be so great. I would be so proud if I could do that.
And with that, the man with the tan, I was going to say, although who am I to talk right now? Just come back from Florida. But he is making his way to the stage. It'll be very interesting to see the reaction that he will get here today. And as mentioned, there's people who've already said on record they will be walking out. There will be protests, but it's a major policy speech. We also have heard this may be the first time he has a prepared speech at any event, and he may be using even the prompter. So let's take a listen again. This is AIPAC, Donald Trump live from D.C.
Thank you very much. I speak to you today as a lifelong supporter and true friend of Israel. I'm a newcomer to politics, but not to backing the Jewish state. In 2001, weeks after the attacks on New York City and on Washington, and frankly, the attacks on all of us, attacks that perpetrated, and they were perpetrated by the Islamic fundamentalists, Mayor Rudy Giuliani visited Israel to show solidarity with terror victims. I sent my plane because I backed the mission for Israel 100%. In spring of 2004, at the height of the violence in the Gaza Strip, I was the Grand Marshal of the 40th Salute to Israel Parade, the largest single gathering in support of the Jewish state. It was a very dangerous time for Israel and, frankly, for anyone supporting Israel. Many people turned down this honor. I did not. I took the risk, and I'm glad I did. But I didn't come here tonight to pander to you about Israel. That's what politicians do. All talk, no action, believe me. I came here to speak to you about where I stand on the future of American relations with our strategic ally, our unbreakable friendship, and our cultural brother, the only democracy in the Middle East, the State of Israel. Thank you. My number one priority is to dismantle the disastrous deal with Iran. Thank you. Thank you. I have been in business a long time. I know deal making. And let me tell you, this deal is catastrophic for America, for Israel, and for the whole of the Middle East. The problem here is fundamental. We've rewarded the world's leading state sponsor of terror with $150 billion, and we received absolutely nothing in return. I've studied this issue in great detail, I would say actually greater by far than anybody else. Believe me. Oh, believe me. And it's a bad deal. The biggest concern with the deal is not necessarily that Iran is going to violate it, because already, as you know, it has. The bigger problem is that they can keep the terms and still get the bomb by simply running out the clock. And of course, they'll keep the billions and billions of dollars that we so stupidly and foolishly gave them. The deal doesn't even require Iran to dismantle its military nuclear capability. Yes, it places limits on its military nuclear program for only a certain number of years. But when those restrictions expire, Iran will have an industrial-sized military nuclear capability ready to go and with zero provision for delay, no matter how bad Iran's behavior is. Terrible, terrible situation that we are all placed in, and especially Israel. When I'm president, I will adopt a strategy that focuses on three things when it comes to Iran. First, we will stand up to Iran's aggressive push to destabilize and dominate the region. Iran is a very big problem and will continue to be. But if I'm not elected president, I know how to deal with trouble. And believe me, that's why I'm going to be elected president, folks. And we are leading in every poll. Remember that, please. Iran is a problem in Iraq, a problem in Syria, a problem in Lebanon, a problem in Yemen, and will be a very, very major problem for Saudi Arabia. Literally every day, Iran provides more and better weapons to support their puppet states. Hezbollah, Lebanon, received, and I'll tell you what, it has received sophisticated anti-ship weapons, anti-aircraft weapons, and GPS systems and rockets like very few people anywhere in the world, and certainly very few countries have. Now they're in Syria trying to establish another front against Israel from the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. In Gaza, Iran is supporting Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And in the West Bank, they're openly offering Palestinians $7,000 per terror attack and $30,000 for every Palestinian terrorist home that's been destroyed. A deplorable, deplorable situation. Iran is financing military forces throughout the Middle East, and it's absolutely incredible that we handed them over $150 billion to do even more toward the many horrible acts of terror. Secondly, we will totally dismantle Iran's global terror network, which is big and powerful, but not powerful like us. Iran has seeded terror groups all over the world, During the last 5 years, Iran has perpetuated terror attacks in 25 different countries on 5 continents. They've got terror cells everywhere, including in the Western Hemisphere, very close to home. Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism around the world, and we will work to dismantle that reach. Believe me, believe me. Third, at the very least, we must enforce the terms of the previous deal to hold Iran totally accountable, and we will enforce it like you've never seen a contract enforced before, folks. Believe me. Iran has already, since the deal is in place, test-fired ballistic missiles 3 times. Those ballistic missiles, with a range of 1,250 miles, were designed to intimidate not only Israel, which is only 600 miles away, but also intended to frighten Europe and someday maybe hit even the United States. And we're not going to let that happen. We're not letting it happen, and we're not letting it happen to Israel, believe me. Thank you.
Believe me. All right. Richard, you were there earlier today. We were talking before. Usually everybody, you give the people what they want. They're going to say how much they love Israel, how bad the Islamic State is, how troubled the Middle East region. They all basically say the same version. It was interesting in the beginning, as you said, the tepid reaction he was getting from the crowd.
Right. So look, I was came back from the AIPAC convention, which is, from some folks may know, is the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee. It's the largest pro-Israel group here in the United States. About 18,000 people have attended. And I got to say, when I was down there, a lot of people weren't very excited about Trump. And I think a lot of that had to do, although you see a very polite audience there, a lot of that had to do with the way he's been talking at his rallies about promoting violence, the exclusion and the targeting of Hispanics, the exclusion and targeting of Muslims. That kind of makes its way down. There's only but so many ethnicities you can get to before you start excluding and targeting them all. You just don't stop. And people of the Jewish religion and Jewish folks are very concerned and considerate of that fact, having gone through the Holocaust where people turned their back. And this is what happened. It started with communists, socialists, and then worked its way down. And so there was a real thought process to that, saying, how can we support somebody who is targeting and excluding certain people? In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu, the president of Israel, condemned Trump, and Trump canceled a trip over to Israel when he said that Muslims should be banned from the United States. So certainly that's all in play down there.
And obviously we can't leave the political context where Trump famously or infamously didn't condemn David Duke soon enough for a lot of folks, and obviously he, the former
with the KKK.
Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing is, AIPAC is also, and unlike myself, there are hundreds of African Americans down there. There are Christians. There are progressive. There are people of the LGBTQ community. It's a very diverse crowd down there, and both Democrats, Republicans, conservatives. It's a very interesting crowd who are there. But certainly the settlement was very tense about Trump speaking.
But Dom, I always think of it in our world, the medium of TV. And it's about sound bites and at most a package, okay? Because most people aren't going to be watching the whole address. He read a prompter, didn't do it very well, but he read a teleprompter today. He said the obligatory lines. He pledged his love to Israel. And he told everyone to believe him and that he knows the deal better than everyone else. But that being said, he dipped the knee, if you would, today. And he did what he was supposed to. Did he do enough?
I don't know about that, Richard. There was very little substance in the speech. He did his standard line of going after Iran, which is something he's done. All the candidates do, but he's done it in particular for a couple of months. Trump as the front runner needs to hire somebody to work with him on reading the teleprompter. It was an awful speech. It barely touches a little bit of substance. I don't think that passed the smell test.
Does he get crushed for this tomorrow? It doesn't matter.
I mean, it really doesn't. First of all, what a schmuck. I mean, I'll just, as the Jew at the table, go ahead and say, I mean, really, like, every candidate who comes before AIPAC is going to pander a little bit, but it seemed like the only time he was getting the major applause lines during the period that we watched were the overarching pandering lines about, you know, how great Israel and how much it needs to be protected. The details, he was very soft on that, as he's been throughout this entire campaign, and I think you heard some of the tepid reaction from the people at the convention who were just sort of giving like the little golf clap. It was really the least they could possibly do. There's been a lot more substance that's gone on through the day from Hillary Clinton and from John Kasich, and I think that pales in comparison. And really, you know, he just got an applause line now, as I'm tracking it on my Twitter feed, by saying that Obama's in his final year. This is keep in mind, it's not just a Jewish group that is AIPAC, as Richard pointed out. It is a pro-Israel group. So anything that they're going to hear that is positive for Israel, they're going to politely applaud. But, you know, I think to me, and to the people who are actually watching with some discerning eyes, it's another emperor has no clothes moment. There's really nothing there behind the bluster. Will people notice that? I doubt it.
I doubt it too, but I will say this much. For people who are sick of the political process, but they're only now, Jeannie, you know, as we're getting near April, starting to get invested in it, everybody can agree on one thing. The Middle East is the most complicated jigsaw puzzle that exists, with so many different sectarian histories beyond the issues of Israel and Palestine. It's so much more complicated than that, so many different bedfellows. How do you deal with Syria and then all the other international implications, invested interests that come into it as well? And you hear that in a very unserious person talking about what will be certainly a huge thing for the next president of the United States to have to deal with in ways that we can't even imagine right now. I don't know, but I think that there's a cumulative part where people say, you don't want that guy with his finger with the launch codes, and you also don't want that guy spouting off in an unsophisticated, unthoughtful way about what our policy should or shouldn't be. I mean, people may not like the style of this current president that we have right now, and even some of his substantive policies, but at least it's thought out. You know what I mean? And we'll talk about Cuba in a little bit. You can't just shoot off the hip all the time. And I have a feeling people might be a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Donald Trump has an opportunity tonight to show himself as somebody who is studying issues that he's not intimately familiar with, who is bringing together,
knows the deal better than anybody.
Who's bringing together a team of people, who is working hard to get up to speed. I mean, he has that opportunity. So if he blows it, and again, he's still speaking, so we should give him the benefit of still speaking. You know, if he blows that, and I think Dominic mentioned it seemed like he's stumbling a bit at the beginning, that's going to be a problem because it pretends what's going to happen during the general election. When people start looking for a president, not just a party nominee, and, you know, he can't just appeal to 40% of the Republican caucus and primary goers. Now he's got to appeal to a majority of American voters. And when you stumble on policy and something, as you mentioned, this important, that does matter to people. So I think what will happen tomorrow, he'll probably, if the speech goes as it started, he'll probably get called out on the rug by the media and other people who are seriously watching this thing. It won't impact the voting tomorrow, but in the long run, it sets this tone and this narrative that Donald Trump, as you mentioned, is not a serious candidate for president. And that's where the Republicans have real concern as they go forward.
And I think, Richard, for me, and you're a veteran in addition to the position you hold with the GOP, he would have been so better served earlier today. Show off some brass, some former military generals here who will give you credibility, who will make you stand. But he can't share the limelight with anybody, and he can't share a soundbite.
Where is his domestic team? Where is his foreign policy team? He has an interest. You know, most presidential candidates are serious.
And to be
they have
fair,
a whole
I can't
team.
tell you who's Ted Cruz's is either for the moment. Let's be honest. But I think for
But
Trump more than anybody,
Ted Cruz has some substance. I mean, he served as a senator. He does have some substance to him. You may disagree with him.
Shut the government down, but yeah.
His website or Kasich's website, there is a list of their advisors, of their advisory teams. Trump tells you that it's his brain.
Yeah.
I'm
Sunday
a really
morning
smart
TV.
guy. It's all my brain.
But by all means,
Rudy Giuliani is helping him out occasionally.
Well,
We know
helping
that.
with the
oh, yeah. By all means, this is supposed to be Trump's, foreign policy speech, his first major speech, and from what we've heard, I can't see that it does him any well.
You can never guess what happens when we look at the polls the next day with this guy, though. That much is for
They'll
sure.
go up.
Well, sticking on the vein of foreign policy, this president had a historic day today visiting Cuba and his meeting with President Castro.